I had this like morbid thought the other day where I was like, most of my shirts are covered in stains, but I'm like, if I died, like, I don't want like Courtney or Jude to be like, oh, like when they see that shirt, they'll be like, oh, that's Austin's shirt. That was Dad's shirt. Like that has signs of his life in there. Otherwise, it's just like a boring old shirt.
I'm Jessica, and this is Hands On, a podcast highlighting creatives and artisans who strive to keep their craftsmanship and heritage alive. Episode 3 Austin from the Belt Daddy.
I'm Austin Santana. I've been making belts for now about 10 years. I started when I was about 20. And yeah, the Belt Daddy is a funny name because that came from one of my buddies. He, after Jude was born, I took like a little hiatus for making belts, and he was like, "Oh, dude, you're like the Belt Daddy now." And I was like, "Oh, fuck, that's a really good name." It's like I'm gonna change that on my handle, so I did. And that was kind of it. But yeah, I've been doing this for about 10 years.
How'd you get started? Like, was it specifically belts?
Yeah, so I was working for a family friend, doing like electromechanical sales, and he was like he's 18 years older than me. He, kind of like a mentor. He was really into vintage, really into heritage, Americana, that kind of stuff. Like he rides choppers. He had a really beautiful pan shove, really cool BSA. So he was just like into that kind of stuff, and he had a really cool double RL belt. And I was like, dude, that thing's fucking sick. And like it was the first time I'd seen a studded belt. I'm like, "Oh, I kinda want one." He was like, "Well, they're kind of expensive." I'm like, "Oh, well, how much are they?" So I went online, looked it up, and I was like, "Oh, I can't afford that. Like, that's way too much." He had, like, some studs lying around because he had, like, studded, like, a leather jacket, and he had some red jewels, and he's like, "Take them, use them." So I took, like, a belt of my own, just kinda, like, awkwardly popped him in place. Looked like shit, but I was like, "Oh, that's kinda sick." And he's like, "Well, I can take you to where I bought these. It's a leather supplier." In Costa Mesa. I was like, "Okay, cool." So we went one day, like, we took a day off work and went to the place, and he, like, showed me some stuff. So I bought some more stones, um, and then I bought, like, a couple belt blanks, and I just started putting them in, and I was like, "Okay, cool." Like, I can't afford, like, a $400 belt, but I can make one. And I was using, like, a shitty little, like a hook knife to, like, get the studs in there, and I was, like, hitting, like, I had a piece of wood that I used to, like, hit everything down, had, like, a janky hammer. It took me, like, hours to finish this, like, really shoddy design. But that was it, like, it was just like, "Okay, well, I can do this." Like, I've always been pretty hands-on with most stuff. Um, like, I've just always taken things apart, put them back together, kinda I wouldn't say mechanically inclined, but I guess in a way I am. So yeah, I don't know, I've always been a DIY kinda dude. So it kinda just started like that, and eventually I ended up we ended up parting ways. I ended up getting into HVAC, but I still kinda kept, during that time making belts and just popping them out, making more, making more. And they just started to kinda pile up. Years kinda passed, and I was like, "Oh, I should probably do something with this." And I was always afraid to start selling because 'cause I'm like, "Dude, there's, like some of the early belts look like shit. Like, these are not clean, I can't sell these. Like, if I'm gonna sell it, it has to be nice." So I just, kinda slowly started working on it, trying to clean them up a little bit, and then about 4 years ago, I was like, "Okay, I think I can do this." So I started with my coworkers. "Hey, do you guys want a belt?" "Yeah, cool, okay, sweet." And then it kinda just snowballed from there. I hit up a couple, like, influencers on TikTok because this was 4 years ago, yeah, so 2022. Um, and I was like, "Hey, you guys want a belt?" And then they kinda started posting them, and it just ever since then, it's just hasn't stopped. The funny thing is, like, when I first started making belts, there was never this intention to make it, like, a full-time thing.
Mm-hmm.
The idea was like, "Oh, this is fun. It'll be a cool hobby." Like, I have a full-time job that pays well. I mean, it's my career, right? So I'm like, this is cool, just extra side money, and I get to have like a creative outlet. And like I said, I hit up some influencers, and the whole thing kind of just took off, and like, it really hasn't stopped. I went from making like maybe 5 belts a month to like 10 belts a month.
Oh, wow.
Now it's like I try to keep between 15 to 20, depending on like the complexity of the belt. Um, but yeah, it's like anything more than that is too much. I think last November I did like 28.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, like, the money was awesome, but I was like, "Oh, I can't do that. That's way too much work." But that's the thing, it's like, regardless of the amount of work that goes into it, like, the fact that people, like, they hit me up and they're like, "Dude, like, I want a belt daddy belt. Like I see my friends with them. I see people posting about them. That's so cool. Like the fact that people want something that I make, like that just means so much to me, And I really I take that um I really take that to heart, And it's just like that's crazy. I was listening to a podcast not that long ago where this guy was saying it was a shoemaker, and he's like, you have an obligation to your customers to make them the best product that you can and get it out on a timely manner. And like I that really resonated because it's like, yeah, I mean, people are spending their hard-earned money on something that I make, and they're not cheap. I mean, I try to keep them like relatively affordable. Um, but like, yeah, it means a lot that someone's willing to spend their money on give me their money essentially like, hey, make me something cool. So yeah, I try to do the best that I can. In terms of just like fashion in general, like it's always evolving.
Yeah.
And like that's okay. And like I'm 30, so like when I grew up in high school, like there were subcultures, you know, like everyone gate kept everything.
Yeah.
Like to be in a scene, you had to participate in that scene. So like the old school version was like kids, but I'm like, well, fuck, Austin, don't be an old grumpy asshole. It's fine. Like people are allowed to be what they're into, and I've learned that, especially like with the group of guys that I'm really close with, I've met through Instagram and the Indigoons. Like we're all into just like we all love denim, but we all kind of have like different interests in terms of fashion, and it's kind of opened up my eyes. There's like this weird ebb and flow. I talk about this with my brother all the time. Like you have like this intersection of like heritage and streetwear, and that's kind of always been there. Like it's always been a thing. Like I would say since the '90s with hip hop and whatnot, like Carhartt hip hop kind of go hand in hand. So that's always been a thing. But I think like right now, I guess like in the LA scene, there's like 1930s repro, 1940s, and and like I love 1940s stuff. Like one of my earliest memories of like I guess kind of like, noticing, like, I guess, style and things like that was, like, Pearl Harbor when I was a kid. Like, when that movie came out, my parents had it on
I
DVD.
freaking love that movie.
Okay, I do too, I don't care what anyone
I
says.
had the DVD, and then you had to like it was like the intermission, then you had to switch
You had to switch
to
to
the
part 2,
second. It was
yeah.
so long.
It's funny because people show that movie, and I love it so much. And, like, I know it's a love story, I know it's not, like, the most historically accurate, but when I first saw that movie, I remember this. I was probably this before we moved to Orange County, so I was, like, probably 5. My parents were watching it one night, I couldn't go to sleep. And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna just kinda sit myself here." Like, kind of heavy, material for a 5-year-old, but I remember sitting there, like, with a blanket over my head, watching, like, the Oklahoma capsize, and I'm like, "This actually happened. This was real." And a couple years later, I ended up watching it, from the same DVD. My brother and I watched it, like, start to finish. And we were probably like 7 or 8. And I remember as soon as we were done, we put on some Hawaiian shirts and khakis, and we were pretending to shoot at planes. And, like, ever since then, like, it really opened up, like, this deep love for World War II, and then as I've gotten older, it's kind of expanded to just, like, it really, like, I would say, like, late industrialization period up to the 1950s, um, with a little bit of imperialism because that leads into industrialization. Like, I'm a big history guy in general, but, like, ever since then, I've always kinda kept my hair a certain way. Like, I like to keep it a little shorter, keep it cleaner. Yeah, just, like, this deep, deep love for it. I mean, I've got, like, bookshelves over there with World War II books that I've read over and over again. I watch the same movies all the time, like Pearl Harbor, I just watched it the other day again. Um, Band of Brothers, The Pacific, all kinds of stuff. Like, kinda getting that exposure in my early 20s to all this, like, it just already, like, deepened a love that I had for clothing in general. Like, my parents were always really stylish growing up, and, like, growing up, a rule that they had, was if you leave the house, you need to look presentable. So I was like, "Okay, well, that's fine." So, like, yeah, like, my favorite thing to do was get an outfit ready for school the next day. And then again, as I've gotten older, like, I've always just kind of loved clothing, and once I kind of fell into the whole, like, vintage heritage world, yeah, it just kind of exploded, and, like, I love it. I love like I said, I really love 1940 stuff because of that love for World War II, um, but yeah, it's just, like, a good shirt, like, a good work shirt, good pair of jeans, stuff that you can kinda just wear every other day or every day or whatever, and just, like, you see the life that gets lived into it. I had this, like, morbid thought the other day where it was like you know, I all my shirt most of my shirts are covered in stains, and, like, I think that's super sick, like, nothing I own is, like, clean. It's probably because of the belts, but I'm like, if I died, like, I don't want, like, Courtney or Jude to be like, "Oh," like, when they see that shirt, they'll be like, "Oh, that's Austin's shirt. That was dad's shirt." Like, that has signs of his life in there. Otherwise, it's just, like, a boring old shirt, you know? It's got that, like it's got my essence, my presence, I guess. I mean, I think now that I'm a dad, I think about that a lot more, like, legacy, I guess, and, like, what that looks like, and, like, my grandparents had really cool stuff, and, like, I look at photos, and I'm like, "Dude, they didn't keep any of that," and I wish they had, because like, my grandfather's, like, the same size as I am, and he used to have, like, the coolest clothes, and he served in Korea, and yeah, both of them did actually, but, like, they don't have anything from that time. I'm like, "Dude, it would've been so sick to, like, get those passed down," you know? And I'm like, "Yeah." So, I just think, like, all the time, like, "Okay, what can I leave if I die tomorrow or if I, live a nice long life?" I want the signs of that to be there, Like I said, if I just had a clean shirt, it's like, that's any other shirt, but I want this to be Austin's shirt or Austin's jeans or Austin's boots, and You know, my parents, again, they had a lot of cool vintage stuff too, but my dad was a little bit bigger than us, so, like, nothing really fit, and I'm hoping at some point Jude can, like, inherit some pieces. Cause like, yeah, I mean, I hope he likes vintage, and I hope he's into that? Again, my parents were always really stylish, so I'm like, I hope they kind of we can pass that on to him. Cause I do think, like, style is something that you can learn it, but I do think that there's some people who just, like, are inherently, like, cool, and, like, I don't know, it's not. Yeah, I think you can inherit style from your parents? Like, I look at my photos of my grandfathers, and, like, they were so cool, and, like, they were both, like, blue collar guys. Like, my dad's dad, he had his own asphalt company, and then my mom's father, he worked as a sheet metal union, worker until he retired back in the '90s. But, like, I look at those photos, and I'm like, "Those guys look so sick." And, like, my dad, he owns his own asphalt company. Um He's been doing that for, like, 40 years, and then I got into HVAC, so, like, there's this, like, kind of cool, like, legacy of, like, blue collar guys in the family, and I just think that's, like, so cool, and I'm glad to carry that on. Like, yeah, there's just, like, something cool about, like, having that in my bloodline? And then again, my grandfathers were really, really stylish as well because they were first generation, so back then, like, you had to assimilate, back in the '50s. And, like, they were very much like we're here in the United States. Like, my mom's parents were born in Texas. My dad's dad was from Chihuahua. Regardless, they were still like, when they came to California, it was like, "Okay, you have to carry yourself a certain way. You have to be presentable when you leave the house. Like, we're Americans. We have to assimilate." Um, Not that that was right per se. That's a very nuanced topic, but, again, like I said, looking back, like, they were just really cool and stylish and always really presentable, and that got passed down to my parents and my aunts and my uncles. My dad's always wearing, like, some sort of button-up shirt, sleeves rolled, with a pair of Levi's and, like, cowboy boots, and, like, that's kind of his look, and, like, as I've gotten older, like, I'm wearing engineer boots today, but I've always had a pair of I always have boots on, whether they're cowboy or engineer. It's kind of the same formula of just, like, long sleeve shirt, sleeves kinda rolled, pair of jeans. And that's, like, kind of just the uniform, and, like, play around with it here and there, but yeah, like, that's just, like, a comfortable outfit for me?
Can you talk more about like your background and like your culture?
Yeah, let's see, so father, mother, we moved to Orange County when I was about 6. Um, I think a huge part of their identity is, like, trying to fit in. My last name's Santana, like, there's a there can be some negative connotations to, like, being Mexican American in this country, especially now. So, like, that was yeah. I talked about it with my cousins and my siblings, and, like, they shouldn't have ever had to feel that way. It's really sad that they do, and unfortunately, there is a little bit of, like, a disconnect, really on both sides of the family. Like, there's no real connection to that culture because 'cause I'm, like, 3rd or 4th generation, depending on which side you look at, and, yeah, that culture kinda got lost growing up from my parents. So, my uncle, before he passed away, was digging into a lot of our ancestry, and it was a really cool thing, but he passed away before he could finish. So it's like, yeah, it's unfortunate that that was something that was seen as a negative,
it's interesting you brought that up because I talk about that with, like, my friends a lot or when we come, from different backgrounds, and I think the older generations of, like, yeah, when they immigrated,
Mhm.
it was very much like, yeah, you had to assimilate into this society if you wanted to be accepted.
Yeah, it was like a self-preservation thing.
Yeah, literally, like, for survival of, like, you wanna do well in this country,
Yeah.
essentially,
Yeah.
but you're different.
Totally. Like, I don't speak Spanish. I can't. Like, I can understand it. I can speak it a little bit. I have to really listen. My parents speak it, but that's because they learned in school. They didn't even speak it at home. They had to learn it at school, and then so did we. And it just totally got lost on us. I'm like, dude, that's so like that sucks. I should know how to speak it. I'm living in Southern California, first off, but also like again, there's like this big disconnect with the culture, which I think kind of it's sad. It's sad. And I don't really know how to get that back. Especially now that Jude's born, it's like I don't, besides making tamales like on Christmas, like that's all we got. But it's something. It's
Yeah, it is something, and you can always start, like, now. I have, like, a personal love-hate relationship with social media, and it's, like, ironic with the work I do. I think that's what's also cool is, like, you can meet and reach people now and kinda make your own community of, like, what that looks like to get back in touch with.
100%. I mean, like for the belts, for example, like I never really advertised for these. A lot of the guys, like my friends, the Indigoons, that like I'm in this little subculture with, they ride so hard for me. And they're always posting and they're always tagging and they're always giving me shout outs, which is so cool because I hate Instagram and TikTok. Like, I don't have a huge presence, which I'm okay with. And I hate posting. I hate posting videos. I don't like to talk in them. But I'm really thankful for the guys because, like, my books are always filled, you know? And that's not because of me. I mean, I guess it's the work, but I don't take too much credit. Like, the guys are always, always posting. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I love you goons so much. Thank you all. Because yeah, I won't do it. But the nice thing is I don't have to because they're just like always doing it for me. Um, which is really huge. Yeah.
Do you wanna introduce this little guy?
Yeah, this is Jude. This is my son. Say hi. Can you say hi? Can you say hi? I'm Jude. I'm Jude. Can you say it a little louder? I'm Jude. Okay. Yeah, it's good. Do you want to show me your belt? This is your belt. Oh, okay. No. Yeah, I was like, no. Okay, I'm sorry. One of my mutuals the other day was like, I think it's really he's a father as well. And he was like, I think it's so cool that like you make belts and like he can see you doing that. He's like, that's gonna be something like when he grows up and gets older, he's gonna appreciate. And like my grandfather on my mom's side, um, even though he was like this sheet metal union worker, he painted. He was an artist, not like a professional artist. He never sold anything, but you know, he stopped painting recently. He's 95 now. He's got dementia, um, and Alzheimer's. So the mind's starting to go. But up until just a few years ago, he was still painting. Like the painting that we moved, that's over there. Yeah, he drew that a couple of years ago. But yeah, my grandfather and like my mom's side of the family is very artistic, and my mom's very creative, and like so that's always kind of like I think just been in like the blood, I guess, in some way. And I don't think you need to be like a professional artist to be an artist. I think if you're making art or making anything with your hands, like then you're that.
Yeah. Is there anything that you wanna share?
Just get after it. Like I said, I have a respect for anyone who's willing to put their hands on something and um, just create, because it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, but there's such a lack of like true artisans, and I don't know if I consider myself that. Again, this is just like another hat that I wear. But I think like it's so important to have kind of a return to roots almost. Like if I didn't do HVAC for a living, I would have probably tried to be a cobbler and do that whole thing and work. I love leather, obviously, but like try to make boots, try to create boots, try to repair them. Because I just think like that's such a cool thing to do. Whether you're a hat maker, a shoemaker, a belt maker, a tattooer, um, I think anything where you're getting your hands on stuff is just like so, so cool and so admirable. So yeah, if you're looking to make belts, get after it. Get after it.
Well, thanks so much again
Thank
for
you
like
so
inviting
much.
us into your house. I'm excited to see just like how you keep growing and just where this life takes you because you've been doing some really cool stuff. So it's really exciting to hear that, you've been doing well with everything.
I always say, like, and I have this, like, scarcity mentality, like, one day it's just gonna completely stop, and that's okay because, like, if it were to stop tomorrow, I'm really proud of the work that I put out, and I do it for myself, and I just think that's really cool, so I'm getting kind of emotional. Um, but yeah, like, if I never made a belt again, I would still make belts. If I didn't sell them, it's not that big of a deal, like, I'm always gonna make them, you know? Um, 'Cause yeah, that's just, like, these hands, they're restless, they gotta do something, you know? So, yeah, if I stop selling today, I'm really proud of what I've done. I have a tattoo that says, "Come what may," but I got that years ago. I didn't know that it was a lyric from Moulin Rouge up until a couple of years ago. I was like, "Oh, that's where that came from?" But I was like, "Okay," but yeah, it's, like, kind of my, like, my that's my little motto, Just take it as it comes, come what may.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, and share this episode with your friends and family. Your support helps keep these stories alive. See you in the next one.